Hi, this is Sniz, World 38, Lord of Ultima. In this little cluster of videos I'm doing today, I'm going to do one more part, and that's more of just kind of the big picture global city design concepts and whatnot. That's probably going to be it for the videos I do today. I'll probably get these produced and rendered and up and available for some of our newer members. And I'm sure I'll do more in the future. At some point, I'll get into some of the military design structure stuff. But for right now, I just kind of wanted to get a little something out there for our newer members because I know on C30 we're picking up some potentially fairly new players. Now, one thing I'll just take a second on here, we're going to be fairly selective in our long-term recruitment and retention approach. We're pretty early. If you read through our details about what we're about and where we're going, and you're on board, we'll give it a try. But we are absolutely going to have high expectations on members who are growing quickly. So I wanted to do this kind of resource cities and whatnot are at the foundation. That's what you got to start with. I'd recommend developing many 5, 6, 7 at least resource cities before you're really even starting to think about military stuff. And growth in this game is exponential, so obviously it takes a long time to get to your first new city or second city, and at some point, you get to a point where I'm dropping a city or two a day at this stage. So it goes quickly, and the better you get off to a good start, the earlier you get off to a good start, it'll put you well ahead down the road. So anyway, so I wanted to go ahead and spend a little bit of time on this. In this one, I'm just going to cover, the first 3 videos were some of the more mechanics and basic details. In this one, I'm just going to cover, I don't think this is a perfect example of a city, but it's one that I had saved, so I'm just going with it. So I am just going to kind of cover more of the overall big picture stuff in terms of city design, and also how I go about calculating these how it works. The first thing is there's this tool that I'm using here. This one's actually a desktop tool. It's called City Planner, and then there's also a Flash version that you can use right in a web browser. Either works great. I tend to like this because I like to tab to it, and I don't know, I just like the feel of this one better, but there's really no huge difference between the two. It allows you to, if you have the add-ons, maybe I'll do a small one soon on add-ons, but if you have the right add-ons, you can go into it, you can get your new city, you're barren landed, you can export the share string, which will basically give you an empty city with exactly what the resources look like, and then from that you can sit here, design your city, and then you can share that back into the game. And if you notice in some of the other videos, it'll show like an X over something that I decided to destroy or whatever. It'll actually kind of give you this visual icon indicator in game just to remind you of what your structure is supposed to look like. Big tool, very helpful. Personally, I recommend, whether or not you're big on diamonds and whatnot, I personally think that the game, just in terms of its playability, you really kind of need the ministers for the game to be functional, once you get past 10, 15 cities, and then whether I use diamonds for whatever, it's like, it's kind of personal choice. I personally spend about $15 a month total on the game, and cap it there. Some people go crazy, some people don't believe in it. That's all personal choice stuff. But the minister packs I recommend, some of these add-ons I recommend. Kind of lost my train of thought there. Oh well. This designer, just how it works is you can, it's got all the statistics for your city, both economy and military, and you can what if all day long. Like in this case, I've got all buildings out, so I've used all 100 building slots, and I can say, well, what if I take that cottage away? What does that do? What if I place, and that was a horrible cottage, by the way. What if I place that cottage here? What would it do for me? If instead of a cottage, what if I just threw an iron mine in the little 3-slot not over boosted location, stuff like that. So it just allows you to, what if I have a resource next to a farm? If I destroy that resource, what does that do for my production and whatnot? I tend to, I try not to get, what I want is players, even newer players, who are thinking, dynamic thinkers. They're dynamic thinkers about how they, I don't want to say this is how you build a city. And in the original game, or way back, you basically went in, you destroyed all the resources. There was this best way to build a city, and there was some other elements that were dynamic, but that was just like, it was really retarded. And luckily they made that change shortly before I quit the last time. But basically they made it so that the natural resources in a city were valuable again. And now every city is, I kind of look at it as a work of art. And um, you there's context to what you're doing and how you're doing it. I strongly recommend coming into your city, seeing what's there, and then deciding what to do with it once you see what's there. Sometimes like, I've got to build a military city here, and in which case you already know you're going to be wiping the resources. But for the most part, I like to get my city design and go, oh my god, this is a great wood city. Not all wood, but it's going to be efficient, producing a lot of wood, or this is good for iron or whatnot. And so basically I take each new city, I try to maximize its natural intrinsic value, but then I also have to apply context. And sometimes, hey, I need to up my wood production, so I'm going to be losing some of its natural value to get more wood versus less wood, or I need to put some food in this city or whatever. So to me, I take each new city, I try to maximize what's there, but at the same time there's tons of context. Sometimes based on where it is, I'm going to need a raiding force, I'm going to need more storage, I'm going to need more shipping, I've got to sacrifice, it's just constant decisions of sacrificing efficiency for needs in context with where you're at and growing your empire. A lot of times one of the big points here is, like in this case, this city is a 1700% construction rate. To some extent, it's sacrificing end result productivity for speed to get there. And you can get to a place where once you've got your full city built, like, I don't know, let's say for example, and this isn't real, but let's say for example this particular cottage wasn't a good placement, but and you would have been getting a little more bang for your buck out of placing, maybe doing that with the iron mine, placing the iron mine here. That's not going to be true, but let's say it was. You could build this city, have the cottage there, enjoy the construction speed, and then at the end go ahead and demolish and tweak your city after it's already built. So those are all kind of play style judgment calls, up to you. More, I just kind of want to arm our members, our newer players, with the information, some of the basic philosophies, and then you just got to apply context and your own play style too. Another one of these decisions here, in terms of if one of the sacrifices or compromises you're making, is you got to look at your own play style. Are you a player who's going to be able to log in every 3 or 4 hours from work, and you're going to be able to really kind of log in for 10 minutes every 5 hours? Or are you the kind of player that's going to be able to log in once a day for an hour and be gone a lot for the weekend? Some of those kinds of questions you might have to say, well, I could be 5% more efficient if I built it this way, but by building it that way, I can make it less labor intensive, and therefore, if you're technically 5% more efficient in a micromanagement scenario, but then you cap out your cities and lose efficiency as a result of the fact that you can't maintain it, then you've actually lost any amount of gain you might have gained by maximizing efficiency. So I'm kind of rambling here, but really quick, just to kind of go through one important component when you're trying to just design your city. Obviously, how much wood, how much stone, how much iron, and whatnot is important. But when you look at your global empire, your overall empire, your finite resources, you will ultimately be spending a tremendous amount of resources to produce a new baron. Each new baron represents 100 slots. So in the big picture, the way I kind of philosophically look at this is, I'm trying to get the most bang for my buck out of every slot. So really, and this number is the one I use more than anything, although it's not the only number I use in the City Designer. This is telling me this is my total resources produced for the city, and this is my resource per house. So when I'm saying, well, what if I didn't do it what if instead of putting this cottage here at 622 a house, I put an iron mine here with no overbooster? That actually holds the same 622. It slows my construction speed and it converts some wood to iron, but it maintains the same overall bang for the buck in terms of how much I'm getting out of each slot. So that's basically how I use this tool. Is I just start, laying it out. You get to where you kind of see configurations, and like the minute I see this, I know I'm going to end up with a capped end instead of a 3 with the booster on the side and whatnot, and where I'm going to be able to get my cottages in and so on. So I recommend using one of these tools when you're building your cities. Like I said, I settle it, I export the the design as far as the natural resources, then I build the city, then I import the little icon template thing over the top of the new city, and then basically from there building that city is paint by numbers. I'm dropping the slots as the town hall upgrades, I'm upgrading them and so on. Now when it comes to and I guess I'm gonna be testing this whole YouTube going to 15 minutes thing, because normally I try to keep them under 10, but I'm going to spend a couple more minutes here. So one quick thing is, in my opinion, the best dynamic player in terms of empire building is a matter of accurately projecting bottlenecks empire-wide. When you can see a little bit further ahead, you can say, okay, I can kind of see that my gold is about to be my bottleneck, and I'm about to be in this place where in a couple of days I'm not going to be able to produce barons and keep my new cities growing as much because I'm choking down gold, or I'm noticing that I'm starting to have wood be my bottleneck and whatnot. When you can get good at seeing that big picture for your empire, when you're building your individual cities, very often I can manage, when you're up into the teens of cities, you can manage those empire-wide bottlenecks considerably just in sequencing. So even though when this city's capped, it's going to produce X in stone, X in wood, X in food, etc. As I'm building it, I might find that when I'm projecting, I'm starting to scrape the bottom a little bit on wood. I might spend the next couple of days building my wood producing elements of 5 or 6 or 7 cities ahead of the rest. So what I may find is a city that was all 4s and 5s, I might just go ahead and take my wood production component up to 6, 7, and maybe 8, let the others fall behind. So you can do a lot of this if you look at it like this constant leveling process. If you get good at projecting your bottlenecks and your needs, you can use the sequencing that you use to upgrade the city, the levels of buildings within existing cities under construction. You can manage a lot of that. Anyway, I'm kind of rambling just on philosophy stuff, but I figured I'd kind of tie the other mechanic videos just into just overall what the big picture looks like. I'm going to spend one more minute on this and then call it good for the day. But for now, like I said, if you're a brand new player, you're on your first few cities, I recommend don't even start thinking about military cities until you get to 5 or 6 good resource cities, get some of that momentum going in terms of baron production and research and whatnot. In the near future, we can talk about, and in a lot of cases, I think it may be a good move to even build up to 9, 10, 11 cities before worrying too much about a military city. But at some point, you'll get into city clusters and defensive versus offensive cities and future castles and sleeper castles and a lot of that kind of stuff. But anyway, for now, if you're new, focus on resources, build that foundation, that infrastructure. I probably wouldn't mess, if you've learned some principles here that, you look at your first city and go, oh my god, I made a whole bunch of mistakes or whatever. Don't sweat it. I wouldn't take too much time rebuilding your first city now. You can always go back and rebuild it later, unless it's just really bad. I just kind of move on and just start applying these principles to the newer cities. So, thanks, and hope these videos helped.